Hello, everyone. This is Aloha, and today's Tech Talk is going to be about the Rich Content Editor. So what is the Rich Content Editor in Canvas? This is basically the tool that's going to allow you to add and format content in your course in a variety of areas. So you'll see the Rich Content Editor in the syllabus tool, the announcements, quizzes, discussions, assignments, and in any content page that you create. So you're going to want to keep in mind to remember to use the Rich Content Editor in all of these places. And during the Tech Talk today, I'm going to show you how to do it in a content page. The Rich Content Editor allows you to format the text on a page for easy reading. It also allows you to toggle back and forth between your content and then the HTML code for your content. And it also enables the design of a usable and readable text. So it's all about how you are designing your content, the presentation of text mostly, for your students to be able to more effectively use and read and consume your information. And because of that, when you're designing any pages or text, you have to keep in mind two things: usability, of course, for your students, and also accessibility. And we talk about this a lot in OESP, and we'll be talking about it even more. But essentially, you have to keep in mind that your students could be on a spectrum of abilities, right? You might have students that have declared disabilities, but you might have students who prefer different learning styles, maybe have problems with large amounts of text on a page, or maybe get overwhelmed, for example. So the Rich Content Editor, if we use it regularly and we use it effectively, you're going to have usable and accessible content, which is really important. So what formats are most important to keep in mind when using the Rich Content Editor? Probably headings and lists are going to be the two things that you can use most often to solve most of your problems with formatting text. Of course, there's also meaningful links and much more, such as embedding images and video and links to other pages in your Canvas course and links to documents. And we're not going to be able to cover all of that in today's talk, but a lot of that will be covered in future Tech Talks. So let me go ahead and switch over to our course, or a course in Canvas. Your sandbox is what you're going to be using. And I have a page here. So we're just using the content page tool in Canvas. And I wanted to show you how to use the Rich Content Editor in a page to do some basic formatting of your text. So if you're looking at a content page, you want to go ahead and click the Edit button. And anytime you click the Edit button on a page or assignment, discussion, announcement, you will see the Rich Content Editor pop up right above the text box. And it's going to go ahead and show it to you in regular view. And the HTML editor link is really only to be used to switch over to toggle to the HTML code. But normally you're just typing right into the Rich Content Editor. So the first thing I want to show you is how to use the headings tool in the Rich Content Editor. Right now, when you're looking at the text on this page, it's just a bunch of information and there's no formatting applied to it at all. And normally, when you have this much information on a page, it's going to be probably broken up into categories of information, different levels. For example, if you're looking at the introduction to a course, you might have information about the course, information about your instructor, tips for success. These are different topics that you might see on a page. So how you'd want to do that is to go ahead and highlight the area that you want to make the heading and click up here where you see paragraph and change that to header 2. Now, you're not going to see header 1 as an option to format the text, and that's because Header 1 is always the title of your page. Canvas automatically applies header 1 level to that page title. So you're never going to use it. You're always going to be applying from header 2 on. So let's go ahead and format some headers on this page to help break up these large blocks of information. You just start clicking header 2. And let's make this one shorter. And we'll say this one is also header 2. And you want to make sure all the first level headers are the same, header 2, header 2. And then you might even have within header 2 some additional kind of subcategories, right? And if you did, then that would be header 3. So maybe you would have a couple of header 3s within your header 2s, and so on and so forth. And what this is doing is it's kind of, you know, helping your readers be able to consume this information and understand what's going on, but also for accessibility purposes, it's allowing your users who are using, for example, a screen reader, for them to be able to pull out all of the relevant headers on your page and more easily jump to the section that they're looking for, right? So that's one way to do headers. Let's see. Here we go. And one thing you'll notice is one way that people often will try and do headers rather than using the header tool is they might try and apply their own header to it by, say, maybe making your item in bold and then trying to really make it like a large font size. So it looks like a header, but it actually hasn't been formatted as a header using the rich content editor. And that's a problem because a screen reader or another assistive technology for students with disabilities, it doesn't read that differently as a header. So it's not going to read font size, right? 24 point. Another problem with using kind of bold and bigger text is that it's going to actually potentially make it hard to read on a mobile device because it's going to be huge then on a small screen. So you want to avoid just using font sizes to make headers. And if you want to kind of remove the formatting on something, you can use that little T with a little X. That's the clear formatting tool in the rich content editor. I use this all the time if I'm copying and pasting text in to Canvas from, say, a Word document or somewhere else, and when I paste it in, it's got like super weird formatting in it. The text looks like different styles and different sizes. So you can highlight whatever you want to clean up and click that clear formatting button, and it'll clean it up for you so that you can start again and reformat your headers. Another thing that we see often for formatting that I mentioned before is lists, and the lists tool in the rich content editor is right up here. You see you have two options. You have a bulleted list and a numbered list. So you usually do have on a page a couple of areas where you want to group common information, and you do that. Sometimes you see people doing this, right? They start using maybe dashes, and they say, oh, okay, here we go, do this, then do that, and you see a bunch of these along a page. Let's go back and make our header so we can see. So it looks like this has been formatted, right, into a nice little list of items for you to do. But if we switch over to the HTML editor and look at what it's doing, what it's actually done, we see our header up there up top, H2. What it's done here is that you actually can read the dashes after the paragraph, each paragraph. So it's broken them each line into an individual paragraph started by 2 dashes. So in fact, what it's done here is it hasn't grouped your items into a list. It's separated them into different paragraphs, meaning they're completely unrelated items of information. So it's the opposite effect when you do something like that in Canvas. And the screen reader will also read, you know, paragraph dash dash, and then your item. And that's not very descriptive to somebody who's having the information read to them. So let's switch over and let's remove that kind of formatting where we've inserted our own dashes, and instead we can simply highlight the items and click that bulleted list icon in the rich content editor, and that's going to go ahead and put it in a list for us. And now if we switch over and look and see how it's coded that, you can see here it's coded it for us as an unordered list with each list item grouped together for a user who's using a screen reader. The other kind of list you can use is a numbered list instead of a bulleted list. So if we use that tool instead, it's going to number the items. And a lot of people ask, well, when should I use bullets and when should I use a numbered list? And you really want to think about what the information that you're presenting. To use a numbered list, you'd really want to make sure that it's because those items should be done, for example, in that order. First do this, then do this, then do this, finally do this. So think about the information. Do they have to do it in a specific order? Or is it part of an assignment where they have to submit, say, 3 things to you, and these are the 3 things that they have to submit, 1, 2, 3. Otherwise, you're mostly going to be using probably bulleted lists. They're grouped items, but they aren't necessarily in any particular order. And then after you've, of course, made your formatting changes in the editor, don't forget to save. And once you hit save, it'll show you what it's going to look like for your students. I will also point out one thing that I noticed with the rich content editor is that this may look different depending upon which instance of Canvas you're in. You're always going to see, of course, the bulleted lists and the other formatting, but you might see some additional icons here, and that's going to depend on your institution and what they've chosen to have in your editor. So just be aware of that. I'll also point out a couple of other things that, again, we don't have time to discuss today, but I wanted to let you know about when you're using the rich content editor. A lot of things are going to be available to you. You're going to see, ability to link to URL. You're going to see ability to embed an image, maybe even embed media. Your institution might have a YouTube link here, for example. And then you're also going to see on the right-hand side of the page the ability to embed or link to items within your course, right? So you can link to pages in your course or assignments, discussions, a file. You can upload an image. We will discuss that later. You don't need to know about that right now in terms of the OESP course, but just be aware that it's there and we'll learn more about it later, and you can always ask us questions as well. I'm going to run back over to the PowerPoint, and I want to end the Tech Talk today with a reminder about the editor. And so the reminder is that although I showed you the editor on a content page today, you want to think about it using those tools in other parts of the course as well. Anywhere where you have the ability to use the editor to format your text, to format your content, you're going to want to do that, again, so that it applies the code necessary for users to be able to access it with assistive technology, and just to make it look nicer, be more usable for your students, right? So for example, this week for OESP, you are creating a discussion in your sandbox. Next week, you're creating an assignment in your sandbox. When you're creating your discussion, when you're creating your assignment, think about ways that you can use the rich content editor to better format and present the content in that item. So for example, if you have a discussion forum, maybe an introduction discussion forum, look at, for example, this one has used headers to format the text into the objective, a prompt, and Canvas tutorials. We also see examples of an ordered list here that was done using the editor, and a bulleted list as well. We also see some examples of meaningful link text used. So that's an example of the editor in action on an actual discussion forum. All right, so good luck this week.